Hey, it's Ari. Welcome back to my channel. I have tried to film this video so many times, and I think what's happening is that because it's a more serious topic, I am trying to make it more serious and structured and make sure that I'm giving out all the information I want to give in like the most perfect order, but I don't know why it's just not working for me. So I am going to just tell you everything that I have written down. One day I was walking my dogs and I was having a particularly hard time kind of just with food noise, and I haven't had really a big problem with that since fixing my lifestyle and diet and everything from my previous. I was really tired, and anyways, I'll get into all of that, but it really made me want to just kind of give people tips that help me with preventing binge eating, because I was able to prevent what I felt like was definitely going to turn into a binge, and I have not had one in over 85 days. So I feel like I'm in a better place that I can share some tips that really work, at least that work for me. It's obviously a very individual journey. It is very, very tied to your mental health. So and it also can turn into a disorder. So this is going to be for people that struggle with binge eating, but not people that have like a binge eating disorder. If you feel like it's becoming really out of control and affecting your mental health, your physical health, and your daily life, then definitely reach out to a medical professional. I am not a medical professional. I am just someone that has dealt with binge eating for several years and gained a lot of weight from it. And if you want more details about my personal journey, I did just post a video about all of that, but I just wanted to share some things that work for me. And I have my iPad right here. I'm just going to, I literally was just talking while I was walking my dogs and just saying like everything that was going on in my mind. And so it's a little bit jumbled up, but like I said, I tried to do this in a structured way before and it was not coming out right. I was like, first you want to do this, and I'm just going to tell you, we're going to act like we're just sitting together and we're friends, and I'm going to tell you what works for me with managing my binge eating. First and foremost, you need to, like I said, it's very tied to your mental health. So you need to figure all of that out. So if you need to go to therapy or just have like a more heightened sense of self-awareness and really like dig and be honest with yourself about why you are reaching for food as a coping mechanism. Every time you feel dysregulated, overstimulated, overtired, stressed out, I guess you could eat for a variety of emotions. I mean, there's a lot of people that are emotional eaters that don't necessarily have like full-on binges, but maybe just, you know, when they're sad, they reach for a treat, or if they're really happy, they celebrate with a treat. Like, there's a lot that goes into it, you know, your own mental relationship with food, but you definitely want to address that first and foremost, because any type of tips and tricks to kind of help manage binge eating, they're only going to go so far if you are not addressing the root cause of it. So again, binge eating, it's not like a moral failure or anything. It's something that some people just develop, whether it's from trauma or other mental health issues or just general life stress. You know, you might work 80 hours a week and have no other outlet to relieve your stress, and you have no time really except for when you're driving home from work, and then you have to go home and do more work. Maybe you have kids, or you have to go clock in somewhere else. Food is something that is very accessible for most people, and it can very easily become a problem. So again, it's not a moral failure. It just has become a coping mechanism for you, and you just need to figure out and be honest with yourself about why you are doing it. And once you figure that out, everything else is mostly symptom management. So once you addressed the reason why you are binging, the next thing that you are going to want to take care of and do is give yourself like a very, very honest reflection, an honest audit kind of your lifestyle and how you are eating, sleeping, and how you are spending your time. Are you getting good quality sleep? Are you getting consistent sleep and enough sleep for your individual needs? This is something that I am still working on heavily, and it varies a lot. But if you are not getting good quality sleep, good consistent sleep, Your hormones are going to be all over the place. You are going to have a much harder time making sound decisions. You're going to have a lot more of a impulsive kind of day if you are just tired and you don't even have any brain power to focus on making healthier decisions for yourself. Stress management is another big thing because, like I said, for a vast majority of people that are binge eating, they are using it as a coping mechanism for stress. So if that is your main coping mechanism for stress, you're going to have to find another way to manage your stress. And I'll mention a few here, although I'm sure I'm going to bring them up again. But exercise, going on walks, making sure you're getting enough movement and activity during the day. It doesn't have to be crazy workouts or anything, but moving your body, not being completely sedentary. Doing something that brings you joy is also a great way to manage your stress. So working on your hobbies or getting hobbies if you don't have any. Doing something as simple as like a word search or reading a book or doing a puzzle or knitting, sewing, crocheting. What other hobbies are there? There's a lot of hobbies. Bird watching? I don't know. Make sure that you are spending time on doing things that bring you joy. Again, if you are already having a lot of stress, you might also not have a ton of time in your day to do things, so you might have to find other ways to manage your stress. I would practice mindfulness, I guess, meditate, a lot of different ways that you can manage your stress. And if you did do the first step, like I said, and take care of your mental health, you might just be prescribed medicine that helps with that. So there's a lot of different ways you can manage your stress, but you are going to want to find a way to manage your stress. You want to get to a place where you are feeling like your lifestyle and your mind and your body are in a more stable spot. Because once you feel like you are in just a more stable position in general, like holistically, all of the other things that you can implement to manage your binge eating are going to come much easier and much more second nature. By the way, you don't have to have everything sorted out before you do use the tools that I'm going to mention here. Definitely not. You want to use those while you're also figuring all that stuff out. I just want to emphasize the importance of addressing these things because everything else is kind of just like a band-aid cover up if you are not addressing the other stuff. This one I think is the next biggest thing that has helped me besides addressing my mental health and my daily stress: nourishment and eating to prevent binges and not restricting. Because I mentioned this in my other video, but there's this cycle that is very, very detrimental that a lot of people fall into, and it is the restricting and then overeating cycle. Because if you struggle with binge eating, like, you know, there's a lot of shame and guilt that comes with it. And once you have a binge, a lot of people, me included, myself included, will go the complete opposite direction and they will restrict heavily. And when you do that, you are just going to end up right back where you started and binging again because you are not providing your body with the proper nourishment that it needs. So what has worked for me in this area, if you will, is eating high protein, high volume meals with a lot of satiating foods. So I'll put a list or something in here. There'll be resources in my description. What you want is to be eating mostly whole foods, higher protein, and higher volume satiating meals instead of doing like a grazing thing. For some people, a bunch of smaller things might work, but for me, that never really keeps me full. And then it's like a never-ending cycle and I just want to keep eating all the time. So what has worked is eating higher protein, bigger volume foods. And I'm not saying like eat a ton of calories. I'm sure a lot of people are probably also on a weight loss journey if you have been suffering with binge eating. So that brings me to my next point, which is calorie tracking. And I know that is very, very controversial for some people. And again, if you do suffer with some kind of an ED, please reach out for professional help. This is not advice for you, but calorie tracking has helped me so much because it takes out the guesswork and the kind of stress of not knowing how much you are actually eating. And it helps me to make sure I'm actually eating an adequate amount of calories for myself. And that's for whether if you want to maintain or gain or lose weight. you're just going to have a much better understanding of what you are consuming. And that is going to take away a lot of the stress, and it's going to give you a chance to be more mindful about what you're eating. You can plan ahead, you can set up systems for when you do have a very, very rough day, and instead of reaching for something that would normally trigger a binge, you will now have something in plan that will keep you full. And going back to why I said eating mostly whole foods, I have noticed the biggest difference with cutting out a lot of processed foods. I don't eat completely no processed foods, but I'm talking about very hyper processed things like chips and candy and things with a lot of added sugar, or even just eating out, fast food and stuff like that. Those types of foods are designed to be very, very palatable and addictive. So if you're already having trouble with overeating, I would just try as much as possible to cook your own food, bring your own snacks places if you needed it, bring your lunch to work, nourishing meals. And of course, if you want something sweet and snacks and stuff like that, you can build it into your day, budgeted into your calories. So that's another reason I love calorie tracking, because you're not restricting things entirely. You're not saying you can't have a specific type of food, but you are keeping track of it or planning ahead so that you are making sure you're on top of your needs. And so yeah, fixing your overall nutrition and reframing tracking calories. Don't see it as a punishment, see it as a tool that will help you succeed. I actually like to look at it as kind of like in two different ways. I like to look at it as, for example, budgeting. I track every dollar I spend. This is a newer habit of mine that I've been doing since last January, and it has been extremely helpful. And so I look at it in that kind of way, like just as a normal, just a regular task that I do. It's data, it's planning, it adds structure, which is really helpful for me. Yeah, reframing calorie tracking as not a punishment or something dreadful you have to do, but as a tool. I also love to look at it, and maybe I'm like a little crazy for this, but I love to it's kind of like a game to me, because I know I have a certain amount of calories to eat, and I love to experiment and figure out how I can make the most like delicious and satiating meals for the smallest amount of calories and the biggest volume, because I'm like someone that likes to eat a lot. Like, I like to eat a large quantity, and obviously that can be a problem, obviously. So you know, eating things like potatoes, those are very satiating, and the calories aren't very high as long as you're not frying them, or cabbage, stuff like that. It's fun for me. Okay, I've become kind of a nerd about it, but I kind of love it. It's very fun. And of course, I still leave room for my like sweet treats and stuff. Your environment is very important for this, and the access that you have to certain foods. You yourself know what types of foods are the types of foods that you just can't get enough of. If you have a ginormous, like those big tubs of cheese balls, and you know that you cannot just eat a serving size of it, make your life easier and don't keep it in your house. And I'm not saying you can never have it again. Something that has helped me a lot is I don't keep stuff like that if I can help it in my house. Of course, I don't live alone, and so like my girlfriend will have ice cream and stuff in the freezer that I'm, you know, it's one of those things I'll eat every chunk out of the ice cream every time. So I don't eat it. I have my own sweet treats that I keep, but if you can help it, don't keep that type of thing in the house. I don't want to say ban foods. Don't do that. That obviously, that has a very opposite effect a lot of the time. You start to hyperfixate on things that you say you can't have. So instead of saying I cannot have that, I can never have that again, just say, you know, I am going to have those chips. I'm going to have them next weekend when I go out for lunch with my friends. I'm going to have, you know, chips and guac on the side. You know, maybe you don't keep them in your house because you can't stop eating them, but don't say you can never have them. Kind of it makes it special sometimes if you only save things for special occasions. Half the time, and if you've struggled with binge eating, you know this too, you barely are tasting what you're eating sometimes. Like, you're just eating. I used to dissociate when I would binge eat sometimes, and I would literally eat as fast as possible and not even really enjoy it. So anyways, what else goes with environment? For me, drive-throughs. unless I really need to, I try to not go to drive-thrus as much anymore, because that's just a place where it's way too easy for me to go crazy. Same with places like Olive Garden, or places that have like ginormous portions, and some people are able to control themselves in those types of situations, and you might be able to further down the road. Same with myself, and you know, depending on the day and everything. But if you've had a very long stressful day at work and you're about to hit up the Taco Bell drive-thru, rethink that. Again, make your life easier. Keep a snack in your car if you need to. Make sure you schedule when you're planning out your day. If you know that, you know, the hours between 4 and 7 are very difficult for you because you're driving home, you might be stuck in traffic, you might have had a shit day, make sure that you have something scheduled for that time. I really like this black cherry Oikos Pro yogurt. Oh my gosh, I love it. It's like a dessert to me, which I know it sounds like such bullshit, especially if you're addicted to sugar or really like have certain foods that you love. I know when people are like, oh, I love cottage cheese, that it sounds like bullshit, but this yogurt is really good, trust me. And I make sure to always have it on me, because I know that if I do feel like I need something to eat, I have that on me. And lastly, for this little section, watch what kind of media you are consuming. Obviously, we cannot help sometimes when we are advertised food. Sometimes we can't avoid it. But if you're on TikTok a lot, stuff like that, you'll know what I'm talking about. I cannot watch people eating triple dippers at Chili's without me wanting to go get one of those. I can't see another cheese pull. I cannot see another Chipotle, deep fried Chipotle mukbang. I try to avoid that content. I used to watch it to kind of pre-game binging, so I try to just avoid the content now. I know some people will watch it because they say they get like kind of to live vicariously through them, and I guess seeing the other person get the dopamine from over consuming food maybe helps people to not do it, but I don't necessarily think that's the healthiest way to deal with that. So for me personally, I try to avoid that type of content, but yeah, I just wanted to throw that in here because that's kind of a niche little thing, but it was very pervasive in my life, I feel like, so I just wanted to mention it. So I feel like once you have all of these foundational steps in, now is when awareness is going to really be helpful. So really getting to know yourself and knowing what your personal triggers are, your trigger foods, your thought patterns, what's going on in your brain right before you feel like you are going to binge, or looking back at the last time you did have one and try to take a step back, keep going back an hour in the day and figuring out, you know, how did your day start and how did you end up where you ended up. I feel like the only way I can elaborate in this section, because everybody is so different, is just to give a personal example for myself. And so I'll tell you about the other night, which is what spurred me to make this video. So like I said, I have been binge free for over 85 days on a weight loss journey. I've lost 13 pounds and I've lost a lot more weight than that, but again, if you want all those details, you can check out my previous video. But to go back to the other night, I have not been at a Taco Bell drive-thru in months. And it used to be, along with a lot of other fast food drive-thrus, a place for me to binge, especially after work. So obviously I had been avoiding them and just not going there. I've been cooking mostly at home anyways. I've barely been getting takeout, and it's crazy what happens when you do that. I actually really rarely crave it anymore, and I save a bunch of money as well. But I had a very long work week. I was kind of a little under the weather. I just was not feeling up to cooking. I hadn't gone to the grocery store, and there was a Taco Bell on my way home from work. So I was thinking throughout the day, I think I'm gonna get something from there. But I tried my very best to put all the tools that I already have in place, which is one of them is to be more mindful about stuff like that. And because I'm tracking calories and everything, I tried to make sure that it would actually fit in my day. And I also tried to make sure that I was exhausting all the other options. Now, truly, I wasn't really exhausting all the other options. I could have just went to the grocery store or eaten a can of soup at home or something, but I did put thought into it. I made sure I got something that fit into my macros for the day, that wasn't too high calorie, and I stuck to the plan and I got what I said I was gonna get. And I got it and I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna move on with my day. I ate this, it's whatever, it was good, and that's that. But later in the day, I was walking my dogs and I was feeling peckish. Like I was feeling like, I want to eat something, but I wasn't really hungry. And I know that I had eaten well already throughout the day. And I knew that I had room for one more snack before I went to bed. And I had planned for that, and that would have been plenty. But as I was walking my dogs, I was thinking about eating a couple chocolates, which is normal. But when I was thinking about eating a couple of chocolates, I noticed that my mind was wandering and then thinking, those would be really good. The Taco Bell was really good earlier. And I was thinking about food a lot. And then I was thinking, yeah, I think I'm going to have some cheese jacks too. If you've never had them before, they're so good. Oh, that's like my kryptonite, I guess. My vice, junk food vice. I don't know. But as I was walking them, I realized that I had been thinking about food like for the last 10 minutes of the walk, and like really thinking about it, and just my mouth was almost watering, and I was just thinking about going from the chocolate to the cheese curls. And then I started to notice that I was like doing that thought pattern with the sweet and the salty and the sweet and the salty, and I hadn't really thought of that in a while, or had that kind of like food noise going on in my head, or this fixation on food. So because I noticed that, I took a step back and I recognized that I might be going down that road. And I reminded myself that I hadn't binged in a long time, that I didn't need any of that food, and that I could have that food tomorrow. I can just, you want cheese jacks and junior mints? That's just totally fine. I'm gonna have it tomorrow, and I'm going to put it in my calorie tracker tonight so I can have it tomorrow. And so I tried to remind myself of that. I continued my walk. When I went inside, I think I made myself like some peppermint tea or some chai tea or something like that. I could tell that I was going to go down that road, but kind of snapped me out of it a little bit. Something I like about like tea or having like a seltzer with lemon or something like that is that you are still having something, like consuming something, and it's a little bit comforting. And if it's very cold or very hot, it's kind of that temperature change kind of takes your mind out of things as well. So yeah, that's my little personal example of how I stopped myself from going down that road the other night. And obviously it's become a lot more easy for me now, because I've really changed almost everything about my lifestyle, in terms of I'm way more active now with my mind. Like I have a lot of hobbies. I've been playing guitar and violin. I've been walking a lot, and painting, and getting at least 10 to 15,000 steps a day. And my diet is completely different than it was before. Mostly whole foods. Like I said, I rarely eat out. So I think because of all of those things, I was able to implement something as simple and silly sounding as having a tea instead. Because trust me, if I had not had any of these other things sorted out, and someone told me to drink a fucking tea when I was feeling like binge eating, I would have been like, are you fucking serious? So yeah, I don't know. Another reason I've had a hard time making this video is because I know what it feels like when you feel completely out of control and like all you can think about is food. And I know what it feels like to binge and then feel ashamed and then restrict and all of that stuff. And I think the reason I'm having such a hard time making this video is because I know that unless you fix all the other stuff that I was just saying, all the other advice feels like complete bullshit. And yeah, and it's annoying because you want something that is going to fix it right away. But unfortunately, that is just not the case with most things, and you really do need to do the work and do all the other stuff I said. But I promise you it's worth it. And when you do fix those things, all these little tools that seem silly really do help with managing it. In order to implement all those tools, and I'm sure you've heard of a lot of them, interrupting your thought patterns by going out for a walk, having a hot tea, taking a long shower, drinking a nice cold, beverage, some ice water, some iced seltzer and lime and cucumber. I like to make like a little spa water. That kind of makes me feel like a little fancy, and like I said, takes you out of that little fixation with food sometimes. Rituals are really nice, like having a very ritualistic kind of night routine, lighting a candle and taking a nice long bath, reading a book. Having some kind of routine that is your own, that brings you comfort and helps you manage your stress and occupies your mind. For me, having a very idle mind is not, it's like a recipe for disaster if I'm also stressed out and tired. If I'm stressed out and tired and I go home and doom scroll, there's no way that I'm not heading to the kitchen next. Or at least thinking about it. So when I get home, I try to, take care of all my responsibilities, obviously, but I try to keep my mind and my hands busy as well. And I'm not saying like be doing all this labor and you're so tired, like you deserve to rest and nap and do all of that stuff, but just try to make sure that you are treating yourself like you would a little child or baby that you love. You are going to give them some nourishment and give them entertainment and do things that are nice for them. You're probably not going to hand them an iPad to scroll on TikTok for 5 hours until your eyes feel like they're gonna bleed, and then eat an entire family-sized pack of hot Cheetos, I would hope. Another thing that really helped me is eating mindfully and also decentering food from your life. So what I mean by that is when you are eating, take a step back and you think about what you are eating. You really taste it, you eat slower. You don't just, put a plate in front of you and mindlessly watch TV while you eat and don't pay attention to what you're eating. It's fine to watch stuff, whatever, I do it all the time, but have a few bites, drink some water, taste what you're eating, enjoy the fruits of your labor if you are cooking for yourself, because cooking for yourself takes time, and have fun with cooking for yourself. Try different recipes. Also, you don't need to make like whole ass recipes all the time. I'm like a big proponent of just eating like different ingredients. Like, my point is to enjoy your food. Be mindful of what you are eating. Don't just shovel it into your mouth, especially if you're eating something that is a treat for yourself, something that you're really looking forward to. Maybe you, like I said, I really wanted some Junior Mints and a bag of cheese curls that night that I was stressed out, and instead I said, I'm gonna just plan it into my day tomorrow, and then when you do eat it, take your time eating it. Have a nice, sip of whatever you're drinking while you're eating it, instead of just like And then for decentering food, this is something that was important for me, because I would look for any excuse to eat food, like any little thing to celebrate. I would be like, let's go get something to eat. I'm not saying that you shouldn't celebrate things. You should definitely celebrate things if you want to, but you don't always have to have food as your celebration. You don't always have to eat when you're hanging out with somebody. Don't always have to make it about the food. Now, if that's just a fun thing that you want to do, I know food is big in most cultures. I'm not saying to not do that, but plan it into your day. Maybe if you are going to go out to eat lunch with your friend, just think about it before you do it. Plan it out a little bit. Take a look at the menu, and like I said, if you're tracking calories, which I highly suggest, or just at least having a better understanding of what you are eating throughout the day, try to make a decision ahead of time. Try to avoid doing impulsive stuff with food, especially in the beginning when you're still trying to really reel in your binge eating. Decentering food is just kind of being more neutral about food, trying not to assign like this food is good or bad, because then if you eat that food, you're gonna feel like shit about yourself. And when you feel like shit about yourself and you feel guilty and ashamed, you are way more likely to get back into that cycle. Try to reduce your guilt surrounding food and try not to dissociate when you're eating food. I know it's easier said than done, especially if you've had these habits for a long time, especially with the binging and restricting cycle, but try to just look at it as nourishment for your body. This will be something that tastes good. Ice cream, maybe it's not necessarily like super nourishing, but it tastes good and it's a nice treat to have every once in a while. So try to not, again, assign moral value to food. And because a lot of people fall into this binge restrict cycle, it can be a little scary to practice moderation as well, or track calories, but try to not be scared of doing that. And again, try to reframe it. It's not a punishment. It's not you denying yourself nourishment or anything. In fact, I feel like it's the opposite. Instead of just blindly guessing and eating way too much past the point of feeling full and feeling guilty and ashamed, and then eating not enough and feeling like you're starving, instead of doing all of that, give yourself the gift of adding some structure to your life, and just look at it as you're just taking very good care of yourself. You are not tracking calories or tracking your food intake as a punishment. Now, in order to continue managing your binge eating into the future, along with many other things, you need to get rid of this all or nothing mentality. Because what happens when you have the all or nothing mentality is that you don't leave room for yourself to progress or to make mistakes. If you have a binge, it does not erase all of your progress. It doesn't mean that you are a bad person or that you're never going to get better. It doesn't mean any of that. It's going to happen. It probably will, and it's okay. If you do end up feeling like you are getting back into those cycles, or you do end up having a binge and you've been binge free for a while, or, you know, maybe you have a good day and then you have a bad day, do not beat yourself up. Do not ruminate on it. Just get back up and go back to your plan. Just keep going forward. It's the same thing like if you are, you know, trying to watch your calorie intake, say you have a bad day or a meal that doesn't fit in your calories, or if you do have a binge, your day is not ruined, your life is not ruined, the week is not ruined, the year is not ruined. You made one decision that maybe wasn't great, and the next decision you make is going to be a good one. That's what you tell yourself. I didn't do that the way I was supposed to, and my next decision is going to be good. The next one, the very next second, it doesn't matter. You don't need to wait till the next day. You don't need to wait till next week. The time to do it is now, and if you mess up, it's okay. Just keep going. In closing, I know that was a lot of information and very rambly, and I'm sorry. I tried to make it more structured. I hope I didn't leave anything out. I just wanted to get something out there for people that are struggling with binge eating. I know it is very hard. It's not something that is an easy overnight fix for most people, and for some people you really do need to go get some kind of a medical intervention or like a mental health evaluation, stuff like that. I highly suggest doing those things if you have access to them, especially if it feels like it is really, really overwhelming you. If you are in kind of the place that I am now, where I have worked on my mental health, I have a pretty good stable foundation, but I still struggle sometimes, and I'm sure a lot of people do. If you are in that kind of spot, or you are just starting to try to figure out why you are overeating, or you just notice that these things are kind of creeping up, then I hope that this video helped you. I know that it's not fun to hear things like calorie tracking and getting good sleep and drinking enough water and all of that stuff. Trust me, I know I hated hearing that type of stuff, especially when I was really like in the thick of it, because it feels like things that you feel like you're doing already, and you feel like just very helpless. But I promise you, if you just take it step by step and do the things I said in this video, especially the foundational things, your life is going to improve drastically, and anything surrounding food and your relationship to food is going to improve as well. You're going to feel better in yourself mentally and in your body. And please, if you have any of those like little tools, like I said, going on walks, drinking tea, stretching, exercising, stuff like that, if you have any like funny silly little tools that help you, like I said, this isn't very groundbreaking, but I really love to make a spa water and take a hot shower. It really just like something about the crisp like plain seltzer with and taking the time to like slice up cucumber and lime and lemon, something about that little ritual helps me so much to break the food fixation, especially if I've had a long and stressful day. So if you have anything like that, please leave it in the comments for other people to see and try. You're not alone. I know that this is a very hard thing to deal with, and it is a lot more common than a lot of people think. So please don't feel ashamed or like you are a bad person or a failure or anything like that. It is just, it's a very normal human thing to develop coping mechanisms that maybe aren't the healthiest, and it's okay, and you will get better, and you are worth recovering from this, and you are worth working on yourself and your mental and physical health. So thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this or found anything helpful, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel. I will leave everything linked below. If you have any suggestions or requests, please leave them in the comments below, and I will see you next time.